And welcome in everybody to the Make the Money and Run podcast for August 19th, Thursday, 2021. Coming up on this episode, lots of baseball to talk about. The division races heating up. And how about those wild card races? And did you see what Shohei Ohtani did yesterday? We'll get to all that and more. Major League Baseball, lots to talk about in the last 6 weeks. And then, of course, we've got NFL preseason number 2 going off tonight. One game tonight. That's the Eagles and Patriots. We'll preview that, and we'll talk about tomorrow's games as well. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Mondays at 3 Eastern, Thursdays right now at noon Eastern, and Friday at 1 Eastern. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live. You can download, subscribe, rate, and review anywhere you get your podcasts if you miss it. Also, when we have day games, we do our early shows. We always try and put some social media out by 6 Eastern for our later picks for the evening baseball or evening games that take place. We will do so today as well, too. 10 games on the board in Major League Baseball, 8 on the board. 10 games playing tonight, 8 on the board right now. The other 2 we'll discuss in a little bit. We're sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com. You can reach them at 408-257-7262, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com. Hello, Charlie O. How are you?
Hey, listen, I'm waiting for my fish and chips and Bass Ale to get here via DoorDash from Britannia Arms, man. They said it might be a while because it's like a 2.5 hour DoorDash, but it's on the way.
From where you are to Cupertino, that's probably true as well, too. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live and YouTube Live for all the comments. If you saw the Bill Lasky interview the other day, we didn't have a show on Monday, but we had the interview with Bill Lasky talking about San Francisco Giants, the NL West, and baseball in general. Really good insight from Bill, who does a great job on the weekends with his San Francisco Giants analysis on his post-game show. But first, we start with the NFL. We didn't have a show, Charlie, since last Friday, so these are some of the recaps from last week. What a good game it was. I mean, it was bad football, but there were some exciting games. Kansas City beat the 49ers on the last series of downs for the Chiefs. Vegas ended up looking pretty good defensively over Seattle. Again, none of the main players played after the first series or couple of series. Kind of unfair for backups to come in because they don't have the number 1 offensive line, so that kind of hurt a few people. I'm really fired up about the Chargers this year. Justin Herbert, hopefully he stays healthy. Their defense is improved. Brandon Staley will help Justin Herbert, former quarterbacks coach of the Rams. They beat the Rams last week. Jets beat the Giants. Texans over Green Bay. What kind of year is Houston going to have? See, probably not a very good year, but it's good to get off to a good start for Dave Culley and the Houston Texans. Baltimore over New Orleans. That was a pretty good game, too. I caught most of it. Cleveland beat Jacksonville, and then Denver blast Minnesota. Minnesota's got all sorts of internal problems right now. And Indiana last Sunday beat Carolina on a field goal. Charlie, your thoughts from week 1 of the preseason? I know there's not a lot to go on, but I'm sure we had some things going on going into it.
Well, I think it was fun to see the new draftees, the new quarterbacks in particular, because they're high profile and we knew about them coming in. And, there were sparks. There were moments that were exciting. I'm a little tired of hearing how Justin Fields is going to be the best quarterback in the history of the Chicago Bears. Bears fans, God love them.
Love them.
They're so desperate for moments of success that I'm just trying to calm them all down. Trey Lance had some moments where he looked fantastic. That one pass play where he rolled out and had an 80-yard pass play, he looked great. Other moments, he looked like a guy that came out of the Football Bowl series and was, deer in the headlights, which is exactly what we expected him to look like. These guys, these guys have been in practice, and now they got out and they were on the field and they found out just how fast the NFL game is. And that's why you do preseason. So there were moments of brilliance and there were moments that were totally ugly. And that's exactly why you do preseason. And you're absolutely right. The backups, those poor guys, because they wind up with the guys that were drafted in the 7th round on the line going, wow, that guy was pretty fast. And it'll be the quarterback's on his back going, they're not paying me enough.
Yeah.
So, but there are things, it was nice to see the Chargers look like they've got some excitement. I think the Chargers, now that the Chargers have a guy that's a head coach that's a defensive guy, I think that their defense is going to look different, and that's one of the things that they really need. They had a good offense, they just had no defense, and I think that that's going to make a big difference there. I'm not worried about the Rams at this point losing a preseason game. That's not an indicator of what their season is going to be. We see some of the go back and forth about who's going to be the starting quarterback. All those kinds of things are coming together. Who's going to be the starter in Jacksonville? All of those kinds of things that are going back and forth. We'll know more because of there being only three preseason games. We're going to know more after this week, and of course next week the rubber will start hitting the road. So, it was just fun to have a lot of football. I mean, wasn't it a nice diversion?
Yeah, it was great. It was great to watch some of the NFL. I taped most of the replays, so I was able to stay up during the middle of the night when I was getting some work done and be able to watch it and see some of the names that you're going to hear about. Obviously, the outcomes don't matter in terms of the games, but some of the things that happen. Trey Lance looked pretty good. He had some bad throws. The game was faster for him. Kansas City ran it down, the 49ers fifth-string defense at the end of the game. Those of you that are betting on preseason football, if you really, really know what you're doing, fire away. Or if you want to throw some pizza money out there, that's fine too. There were some games. Yeah, there were some games that ended up on the bad end, depending on who you took. I know the 49ers were covering until the last series down the end, and then the Chargers ended up covering their 3.5 against the Rams. Cincinnati, their defense looked actually really good, except that they lost. But Cincinnati's defense, their front line is really good. If they can stop anybody on defense, their offense, and Joe Burrow coming back from his injury last year. Pittsburgh, Roethlisberger is going to look good this year. A lot of people have already put Ben Roethlisberger, including Adam Schefter and his fantasy football gurus over at ESPN, and said that he's a tier 3 quarterback. He might be a tier 3 quarterback, but he had no running game last year. And now Najee Harris looked pretty good in the Hall of Fame game, and he looked good last week. They may be ahead of the ball because they've had 2 games this year, and Ben has not played. Big Ben has not played the first 2 games yet. What do you do in Washington? You got Taylor Heineke. You had a great playoff run for the Washington football team. Ryan Fitzpatrick is there as well, so that's going to be a pretty interesting battle there for Ron Rivera. I think his defense has stepped up. The division wasn't great last year. We all know how bad the division was. The Cowboys are talking about no preseason for Dak Prescott. He's working on his shoulder injury, coming back. Don't know if he really needs to be there, but it'd be nice to get him some repetition. I'm sure that's what practice is for. And Saquon Barkley coming back off his major injury last year. They're not sure if he's going to be back for week 1, but they are pretty sure that he's coming back in week 1. More notes of the NFL. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want a farewell tour. He says this is not going to be his last year. Minnesota.
Neither is anybody else.
Yeah,
Shut
I know.
up, Aaron Rodgers. I'm tired of it.
Well, they keep asking him the questions. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he is the guy that they're asking. Minnesota is internally combustible. Matthew Stafford, another quarterback who may not play at all. And who's the quarterback in New Orleans? The NFL West. A lot of people think all 4 teams are Super Bowl contenders. I don't know how there's going to be more than one team out of that division with everybody beating themselves up. What's the hype in Arizona? And is Russ going to have a big year in 2021? I say yes. Charlie, NFL notes. What are you taking in going into week 2 and week 3 of the preseason? By the way, Charlie, one more thing. There's 2 weeks between week 3 and opening week of the season because they're not going to go Labor Day. So that's going to get more combined practices. And what do you think about these combined practices by both teams?
Well, it's interesting. I heard Shanahan, and we, by being where we are in Northern California, we hear a lot about things from the 49ers. We still hear a lot from the Raiders because the Raiders having been in Oakland, we still have a ton of Raiders fans in this area. So we get a lot of Raiders news. And I've heard Shanahan and Gruden talk about it, and they say it's great for the teams because it lets them see somebody else other than themselves. So in essence, it's kind of like having spring training. You don't just have inter squad. You get to go up against somebody different. You get to see somebody else other than yourself, other schemes, other things. And the deal is, and I loved it. I forget who said it, but they keep it under a dome, and it's kind of like what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club. So I love that concept. So I think it's good for him. It gives him somebody else to compete against, kind of gives him some adrenaline to keep things going. So I think that part of it is really good. As far as what we're seeing, I really am concerned about the Packers as a team, about how wearing this whole Aaron Rodgers thing is going to be on the team, because psychology and mental awareness and mental attitude is important to a team. And this Rodgers thing has carried on now for the entire offseason, and it's continuing on into the season. And after a while, it just has got to wear on the entire team. And Aaron Rodgers can put an end to this. And how he can put an end to it is ask me one more question about this, and I'm not talking to you. And he can, seriously, we've seen it in the past from players and players of his stature, and the NFL will back him on this. Ask me one more question, and I'm done talking. And he can put an end to it. And he needs to do that for his team. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have his right to make a move. I'm not saying that he's wrong in his relationship with the Packers and what's going on, but for the good of his team, for the good of his fans, right now, he needs to put the kibosh on that thing and put an end to it. The other thing, talking about New Orleans, who's the quarterback in New Orleans? I still contend both of them. I still contend they are going to use those guys in a tandem way. And why not? You got two guys with different skills who seem to get along. Jameis Winston, have you ever seen, did you ever think Jameis Winston would have the kind of attitude he's having right now? I can't believe what a strong and great attitude he has. So if he's going to have that kind of attitude, use those two guys in tandem, use those two sets of skills and go at it. I'm kind of excited to see what they might be able to do that way, because we saw glimpses last year, and I think it could be exciting.
Tampa Bay still the top of the division. They're second overall in Super Bowl contenders. I'm trying to get Mike Triplett on from ESPN. He's a Saints reporter on for next week, so we'll talk about that as well too. As far as Aaron Rodgers goes, there's no stories right now because the games are boring and the football is bad, so they're looking for stories to go at. And I get it, because he's a polarizing figure. So that's just the way it's going to go. But I don't think after the season starts, that conversation will dip down. It'll probably happen for another week. And then remember, there's 2 weeks between the third preseason game and opening day weekend. So all the injuries and all the roster setups can be all set. Fantasy football will be all set. By the way, I got this in the mail yesterday, Charlie. I wanted to show this to you. One of the services that I have an account with sent this to me. I guess it'll go on my wall for every Friday. It is the entire schedule in a tack board right here from week 1 to week 16. I don't want to mention I don't want to mention the sportsbook's name yet, because I have an account with them, but they're not a sponsor of us, so I don't want to mention it yet. So I'm all set up. They need to sponsor our picks, and they know it too. I've been in contact with them. But anyway, this is my little gift, so I might have to find a wall with it. Let me show you here. So week 1 up in the top left, all the way down to week 16, all on one page. No trees were harmed. Too bad in the making of this sheet out to the customers, but it's really good. Last thing on the NFL last couple things on the NFL. I'll be interested to see Cincinnati. I really think Cincinnati can make a move in this division. Everybody's hyping up Cleveland. Pittsburgh has been the incumbent for years, but the Cincinnati Bengals, I've seen them play live twice, and I saw them play last year on TV with Joe Burrow before that terrible injury. They were moving the ball up and down the field. Their defense was not very good. Their front four was really, really good 2 years ago, and they slipped off a little bit. With Burrow back, they've got a healthy running game. They've got receivers there. I know they lost A.J. Green, but I think Cincinnati's going to make that a 3-team race in the AFC North. I don't think there's any – actually, it will be 4 teams with Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. They may finish last, but it's not going to be as bad as people think. We'll have the overs-unders for win totals coming up the week of the NFL opening week after Labor Day, probably that Wednesday or Thursday. We'll have the opening lines for overs-unders. I know some of you already have them out there in social media world that's watching us on Facebook. By the way, hi, Vinny G in San Diego for checking us out.
Skinny Milligans!
So How's the weather down there? Probably everything real good down there. I don't know. A lot of Chargers fans still down there. I guess there are. I like the Chargers. Justin Herbert from last year. I think he's only going to go up. He's a smart kid. He's got some talent around him as well, too, and their defense will be better this year. And I would not count them out of the AFC West. It's not Kansas City's division, 1,000%. We'll see what happens with the Raiders, and we'll see what happens with Denver. I'm not even counting out Denver yet going into this season, because if Von Miller comes back healthy and their defense played like they did last year, any sort of offense, any sort of progression by Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, whoever has that competition, one should be able to improve that team from last year as well. And then, of course, we cannot end football without talking about my Bears. You referenced them already. As it is. So I just have to go out on this Twitter. It was trending yesterday. It had about 1,500 likes on there on Andy Dalton opening up and speaking his mind a little bit. Justin Fields is going to be healthy, by the way. They're going to play Buffalo this week, so they're going to get a look at their past with Mitch Trubisky playing for Buffalo this weekend. The Bulls and the Bears are going. The Bills and the Bears are going to play this weekend. And Trubisky's going to face the Chicago defense, and Chicago's going to already know what his skill level and what his talent is, unless that Buffalo and Josh Allen has gotten to him a little bit and kind of helped him with his mechanics. But how about Andy Dalton, Charlie, before we wrap this football segment up? Andy Dalton, speaking his mind, he says it's his time still. Justin Fields is going to have a great career, but it's my time, and I'm still playing for the number one job, and I think that's probably the way to go. But I don't know if that was needed. He probably was asked, because Andy Dalton doesn't seem like the type of guy, at least I don't remember him coming out and making boisterous statements like that over the last few years. But I had this conversation on our previous show, if anybody caught it, with Matt Mayoko, about what game is the over-under that Justin Fields is going to start for the Bears, because their defense is Super Bowl worthy, as it's been the last 3 years. And as a fan, it's just molasses to watch for lack of a better word, it's just molasses to watch the offense. They've got Montgomery in the backfield. Their receivers need to improve. They've got, I don't know what their tight end situation is, but Andy Dalton, a quarterback, does not inspire me as much as Justin Fields does. And I know it was all the second quarter last week, and I know it was all good. He had his John Elway moment at the beginning of the game, but then he looked great after that. So he, Lance, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, all of them. Mac Jones even played well for New England. But Andy Dalton speaking his mind. Your thoughts, Charlie?
Well, first of all, I love it. Okay, because Andy Dalton's coming in and saying, hey, I didn't come in here to be a high-priced backup. Okay, I'm still a viable quarterback. I'm here to compete for the number one job. So that's great. And, Bears fans ought to be very, very happy about that, because that's also going to push Fields. Because he's coming, all of a sudden, he's going to look and go, hey, that old man with the red hair is saying, I don't automatically get the job. And I'm sure that Fields is smart enough to look over there and go, hey, that dude knows what he's doing. That guy can still chuck the ball and knows what's happening. So I think it's great. Quarterback controversies this time of year are one of the best things you can have for a football team, because it's going to push everybody on the offense. And frankly, the best thing for quarterback development is to not have to throw a rookie in there at the starting position to get started. Now, I have heard a lot of experts say they think that Fields will probably be the starting quarterback like week 7. And the projection on that is primarily because they think that's where the Bears will be out of the playoffs, and that'll be a good time to put him in, or that, that just things will be going badly enough that it'll be time to make a change. For Bears fans, and I love Bears fans, and I got a lot of good friends in Chicago because I used to live back in South Bend, and I've got a lot of friends who are Bears fans. I hope that's not the case, but hey, good for Andy Dalton. Get in there and compete, good man. Red Ryder, go for it. Again, that's going to push the kid as well.
We'll hit the NFL with the 2 games tomorrow as well. By the way, New England, as I saw and I put up there, New England is favored by 1 tonight, 38 the total against the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, looks like he's going to be a real good coach for them as well, too. So New England, Philadelphia tonight, and then 2 games tomorrow with Kansas City going up against Arizona. Mahomes and Murray will go up against each other, at least for the first quarter probably. And then the aforementioned Washington football team. I'm not sure who their starter is going to be. Washington -5 on Cincinnati, 34.5. Obviously, Joe Burrow not playing as well too. So lots to talk about in the NFL. Week 1, by the way, my Bears open up on Sunday night against the Rams. So probably not a good idea to have Aaron Donald as your first opponent if you're going to be Justin Fields. So that's not a bad way. That's not a bad way to easily break in Justin Fields into it. All right. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live. Check us out every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays at the times you see there, Facebook and YouTube Live, 3 Eastern Mondays, Thursdays at noon, and Fridays tomorrow we'll be back at 1 Eastern. Facebook and YouTube Live, download, subscribe, rate, and review. Anywhere you get your podcast, just look for that logo up there in the corner for Make the Money and Run. And then every day that we have day games, we will try and put up social media. We'll do social media at 6 Eastern, put up any late changes or any late games. 2 baseball games not on the board tonight. Sponsored by Britannia Arms of Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. Check out Mike and Tommy over there, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com. They are getting ready for football as well, 408-257-7262. They will, I just found out the other day, they will cater for you. They will make deliveries for you as well, too, like everybody else right now. But their food is terrific, and their alcohol top-notch. The English beers and the British beers and all the food that goes with that as well, too. All right, we're going to take a break. 30 seconds. We're going to come back with all the baseball. 6 weeks left in the Major League Baseball season. Division race is tightening up. Wild card race is tightening up. It's going to be an interesting and fascinating 6 weeks for all the divisions pretty much, and then the wild card races as well, too. Vasi Vadaparty, Charlie O with you on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday, August 19th, 2021. We'll see you on the other side. Vasu Vadaparty, Charlie O here with the Make the Money and Run podcast, 3 days a week, Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We're sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. 408-257-7262. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com is the website. Thanks for everybody on Facebook Live. Vince and Tom now joining us on Facebook Live as well. We just got done with the football segment for week 2 of the preseason. 2 more weeks until the opening week will start. That Thursday the 9th will be the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Of course, Tampa Bay coming off their Super Bowl victory. Lots to talk about between now and then in terms of football, but we'll put that on the back burner now as we hit American League Baseball right now. How about the American League, Charlie? And by the way, I'll put up the lines as we get going here too as well. But American League Baseball right now is very interesting. You see the lines at the bottom there. A couple of games will go off early in the morning, 6 games, afternoon games, 4 games in the evening time, 8 on the board right now. The other 2 don't have lines yet. We'll give you an update at the end of the show. But Tampa Bay right now, 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row. They're up 5 on the Yankees, who have overtaken second place from the Boston Red Sox. The Yankees are 2 up in the loss column, 1 up in the standings. They lead the wild card right now over the A's. They are 1 game up on the A's, I believe. I think 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 game.
1 game up on the A's right now. They lead the wild card. Nobody thought the Yankees were going to be there as far as the wild card setting goes. But how about the Tampa Bay Rays right now? The White Sox running away with the Central. Houston has lost 4 in a row. The A's have lost 4 in a row, so they haven't been able to gain ground. But this wild card setting in the American League, New York is 1 up on Boston, 1 up on Oakland. Oakland has the second spot. They are 2 up on Boston in the loss column, and then Seattle and Toronto round out the back half. They are 6. They are 4 back of the 3 back of the A's for the second wild card spot. I'm still impressed with Seattle. Toronto still hanging around in there. Charlie, your thoughts on the wild card before we get to the divisions?
Well, one of the things is you got to try to factor in, what is the loss of Bassett going to mean to Oakland? I mean, first of all, thank goodness.
Yeah,
it's not worse than what it was. I mean, that was one of the ugliest comebackers that I've seen in a long time. And, that could have been an orbital thing, that so many different things. And not that it's not serious, but it's not as serious as it could have been. But the loss of Bassett, wins against replacement at this point becomes a real issue for them, and what is that going to mean to them in relationship to the wild card? They've lost 4 in a row. I watched that game last night with the White Sox. In the 6th inning, they loaded the bases with no outs. Or I'm sorry, in the 3rd inning, they loaded the bases with no outs and did not score and wound up losing that game by a run. Now, let me tell you, I don't know whether Bob Melvin drinks or not. He's a major league manager, so my guess is that he does. And I have a feeling that he was up with his favorite libation last night, walking the floor and probably drinking about half a bottle, because that will make a manager age about 10 years in one game. So you've got a pitcher, you're down your best pitcher, and then your team's not scoring runs. So that, I mean, they didn't score any runs in that game with Bassett. They lost 9-0 there. So Oakland's got to reset because they're not in a good position right now, losing 4 in a row. Now they're trailing the Yankees. You've got Boston right there to deal with. And as you said, Seattle will not go away. You know me, I've been poo-pooing Seattle all season long because I've been waiting for them to collapse like they have traditionally done, and they haven't collapsed. So Oakland is in a very precarious situation, and I think we're in for a very interesting wild card run down the stretch here, and that's why we have the wild card. That's what's going to make it fun. So I think it's going to be good times.
It'll be interesting because the A's have lost 4 in a row. Houston Astros have lost 3 straight to Kansas City, 4 straight overall. So they have not lost any of their lead. They are 3 up in the loss column on the A's, 6 up on Seattle, who in the loss column, as Seattle's in 3rd place. Seattle 7 out of 10. They've won 2 in a row against the Rangers. They've got a game in the afternoon to close this out in about an hour and a half from now. Houston at the same time as well with Kansas City. You see the lines going underneath on the ticker there. And then Oakland has a day off. And what's your reward for a 4-game losing streak? I'm sorry, Oakland plays at 11 o'clock. That's a 4-game series, 11 o'clock on the West Coast as well, too. Cole Irvin and Dylan Cease going for the A's and the White Sox, respectively. And what's your reward after coming back from Chicago? You get the best team in baseball, at least in your home park, for the weekend in the Bay Bridge Series. And those of you that have rivalry cities or rivalries going on, you know how they are, because it's as big in the Bay Area as it is anywhere else. All right, the Tampa Bay Rays lead the AL East in the division race by 5 games over the Yankees, 7 in the loss column, 6 over the Yankees, and 9 up on Toronto in the loss column. I don't see Toronto coming in back in the division race, but the Yankees and Boston's have lost 3 straight. They just got swept by the Yankees. The Yankees have Minnesota coming in. Boston has a day off, I believe, today. Yeah, they have a day off, and then they host the Texas Rangers this weekend for a 3-game series. Dane Dunning and Chris Sale, who's back for the Red Sox, may or may not make a difference right now, but it seems like the offense has gone down a little bit for Boston. Seattle, you're right about Seattle. They won't go away. They're 3 back in the wild card. The White Sox, after this sweep against the A's, I think pretty much wrapped up the Central Division. Indians lost 2 out of 3 to the Minnesota Twins, 2 walk-offs were their losses. Jorge Polanco getting his revenge on all the AL Central teams with both the walk-offs. So, Charlie, overall American League takes right now. Tampa Bay Rays start, the White Sox, and then Houston and Oakland still battling out in the West, Charlie.
Yeah, Houston needs to pull themselves together. They're a good ball club, but if you're going to win your division, you can't be playing around losing 4 in a row. I mean, you've got to act like you're a division leader. And if you're going to be the kind of team that's going to win short series, the short series during the playoffs, you can't be doing this. You got to be winning series now, and showing you can do that and be a factor in the playoffs. So I don't know what's going on with that team right now. They shouldn't be playing this way. They weren't playing that way earlier. So I've got to watch them a little more to see what's going on there. The White Sox, obviously, they're playing out of their minds. My only concern, Vasu, about the White Sox at this point, with this kind of lead, and I think their lead is only going to get better because I think Cleveland's going to wave the white flag, and they're going to probably start bringing guys up and from AAA and start giving them some major league experience and those kinds of things. I mean, I certainly would at this point, is that they may start to skate a little bit. And I worry about a team that starts to have that clinch too soon, losing a little bit of competitive edge going into the playoffs. Now, La Russa has been there before, and that's one of the advantages of having a manager like La Russa who's seen it all. So I think he'll try to help them not be there. But that always makes me a little bit nervous, particularly as a wagerer. That always makes me a little nervous when I see that. And as far as the Rays, I got to tell you, if you're going in and trying to get in a last minute little bit of futures going in there in the American League, my money'd go down on the Rays. Those guys, nobody knows anything about them because they play in Tampa Bay. Nobody pays any attention to them because they don't get any press. They don't get any play on ESPN. They do get some play on MLB Quick Pitch, but nobody but hardcores like us watch that anyway. And so, but I'm telling you, folks, they're an awesome, awesome ball club.
Tampa Bay plus 800 now in the World Series updated odds to win the World Series, and plus 400 to win the American League. Of course, everybody that follows baseball pretty closely knows that they are the defending American League champions. They are on a roll right now. They have won 3 in a row. Their plus run differential is 134, and they got a good, comfortable lead on the Yankees right now, who've won 6 in a row after sweeping the Red Sox this week. The Red Sox have lost 3 in a row. Those were the 3 games against the Yankees. My take on the White Sox is pretty much similar to yours. Hendricks had a tough week against the Yankees, but they bounced back, and they've gotten 3 straight against the A's right now. And they do have a comfortable lead, but sometimes they do lack a little bit. But right now they're going well. Hendricks and Kimbrel in the back end of the bullpen. Kimbrel in the 8th and Hendricks in the 9th has been lights out. Michael Kopech has been terrific. And this is what Tony La Russa remembers from back in the 80s and early 90s with starting with building your bullpen back toward the first inning. And he's got 2 good ones. Hendricks has had a tough time. Craig Kimbrel coming over from the White Sox, I don't think he's allowed more than 1 run. Ironically, he gave up 3 runs against the Cubs last Friday. Ironically, that was his old team, a 3-run home run that turned that game around against the White Sox. But for the sake of it, the White Sox right now, 71-50, Houston 70-50, Oakland 68-53. And then there are those Tampa Bay Rays, 74 wins, 47 losses in the American League. All right, Vasi Vada Party, Charlie O here with you on the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by Britannia Arms. Check out Britannia Arms at www.britanniaarmsdienza.com, 408-257-7262 as well. Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub going in Silicon Valley if you're out in Silicon Valley. Before we hit the National League, I want to talk about Shohei Ohtani, Charlie. How about the performance? Another performance both on the mound and hitting. Not only does he break the tie at 1 to give them the victory, it gives him the victory as well, too. 8 innings, 1 run allowed, also hits his 40th home run, his major league leading 40th home run. He's got to be the MVP candidate right now. The Angels are not playing very well. They don't have Mike Trout. Chances are Mike Trout may come back in 2 weeks. They are, like I said, they're 11 games back in the American League West in the loss column, and they're 8 back. Let me see here. 8 back of the second wild card spot, which is held by Oakland right now. Shohei Ohtani, obviously the show right now, 40 home runs. They've got guys that shouldn't be up in the top of the order that are there, like Phil Gosselin and Julio Iglesias, guys that are major leaguers, but they're not 4th, 5th, and 6th place hitters right now. And the loss of Trout has clearly hurt them. Anthony Rendon has been on the injured list as well, too. But how about Shohei Ohtani last night? And he is a Cy Young candidate now, too, with his 8-1 record, ERA about 2.1.
Well, probably not enough appearances, not enough wins to be Cy Young. I mean, I would love to see it, but he's got to be, I mean, barring Vasu, something catastrophic, he's got to be MVP, right? I mean, between the pitching and the hitting, how can this guy not be the most valuable player in not just the American League, in all of baseball? It's such a phenomena. And I'm looking for an advertising agency right now to start a campaign called Free Ohtani, because I want to get him out of Anaheim. Because again, people aren't seeing this guy. We need him with the Yankees. We need him with the Dodgers. We need him with the Cubs. We need him someplace where he's going to be seen, because what he did yesterday was just beautiful. He went 8 innings yesterday, the deepest he's ever gone in a game pitching. And the pitching is phenomenal. I mean, he would be a starting pitcher on any club in the major leagues. And then you look over there and go, oh yeah, by the way, he's got 40 home runs. I've been watching baseball for 63 years, people, and I've never, ever, ever seen it. I've seen them all. I've seen Mantle. I've seen Whitey Ford. I've seen Willie Mays. I've seen Hank Aaron. I went through the Bonds there. I've never seen anything like this. And I love it. And the kid's attitude. Did you hear him yesterday? Hey, if I give up the 500th home run, he's really a neat guy. I don't care. I'd be honored to give up the 500th home run. Jack Morris yesterday on the broadcast
2 days ago.
2 days ago, did a stupid thing.
Yeah.
When it went into an accent, he's an older guy like me, and he did a dumb thing.
Yeah.
So what does Ohtani do? Ohtani comes back and says, look, I'm not offended. It's okay. Now, he said, I can't control what baseball does, but it's okay. He's a Hall of Famer. It's okay. What? Wow.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And he's 24 also.
This guy is just like, does he walk on water too?
Who knows? He might, because he's only 24 years old. He's got 10 to 15 more years of baseball left. I don't know if the hitting goes down, he ends up becoming a pitcher later on. Doesn't look like the hitting's going down as well too. By the way, the MVP odds right now, if you want Shohei Ohtani to win the MVP, you have to lay 1,000 minus 1,000 on Ohtani to win the MVP. So that's pretty much a lock right there. The National League odds, we'll get to the National League odds when we get to the National League in a second. But
Vasu, I mean, what a guy. I mean,
totally.
Baseball needs to make this kid the face of baseball right now.
Well, I think they are right now. I think they changed the rules in the All-Star game. Clearly, he's must-see TV. They're playing the Tigers. Cabrera going for his 500th home run. They're finishing the series against the Detroit Tigers today. In fact, all the games going on today are pretty much ends of series. Angels-Tigers, a 3-game series. Orioles-Rays, 4-game series. Mariners-Rangers, 3-game series. 4 games for Houston and Kansas City. White Sox-A's, we mentioned, is a 4-game series. Philadelphia-Arizona is a 3-game series. Good matchup there. We'll get to the NL in a second. Twins-Yankees open up a new series. Marlins-Reds open up a new series. Brewers-Cardinals are finishing their series. Milwaukee on a roll here. And the Mets and Dodgers. Mets coming off at least 1 game in San Francisco. They're going to start a 4-game series in Los Angeles this weekend. But I'm with you on Ohtani. I'm with you on everything you said. He's 24 years old. He's obviously very mature for his age. It's unbelievable to me the things that he is doing. And we've watched baseball. I haven't watched as long as you, but I go back to 1977. I was talking to Bill Lasky, who played in the major leagues. I mean, there's nobody like that he's ever seen that's even come close to the things he's doing, both defensively and offensively, at least pitching wise. Anyway, so unbelievable of what he's doing. I mean, 1 run in 8 innings. I looked it up, Charlie. It's 8-1. His ERA is 2.71, and he's only had 2 bad starts, and that was on the road, because his ERA at home is, I think, 1.70 or 1.65 at home. And we called it last Thursday, a week ago on the show. We called him. How is he an underdog against the Toronto Blue Jays at home, even though it was Barrios going for Toronto and Toronto fighting out for a playoff or division spot? But he's clearly up there. All right, Vasu Vatapalli, Charlie O with you here. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for August 19th, 2021. We're sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. They also do catering. I was told that the other day. Britannia Arms, Dianza.com, 408-257-7262. If you're in the Bay Area and are not too far from Cupertino, go check it out. Mention you heard the Britannia Arms of Cupertino on Make the Money and Run. All right, National League. We get to the National League. You see the 2 games in the National League going. Of course, we don't have a line for the Mets and Dodgers yet, or the Marlins and Reds. So 4 games in the National League tonight. But the 2 that we have are dandies to go off. St. Louis and Milwaukee. Milwaukee has won the first 2 games of the series, and then Arizona and Philadelphia. Arizona has won the first 2 games on a Phillies team that should be better than they are. But what a matchup in the afternoon. Zach Wheeler and Madison Bumgarner. Madison Bumgarner, who's thrown really well this last month since he came off the injury. Let's start out there a little bit in the NL East. Philadelphia, 3 back of Atlanta right now. Atlanta, who's hot. They've torn apart Miami the last couple of days, a place that they've had troubles with. They've won 6 in a row. They're 3 games up on Philly in the loss column, 4 up on the Mets. The Nationals and Marlins are both out of it right now, and they've got their situation. They've got a day off today, and they're going to Philadelphia's got Arizona, and they're going. Atlanta is going to Baltimore for the weekend. So Philadelphia's got to make some hay, because I think Philadelphia comes to San Diego this weekend. And even though the Padres are struggling, that's still a competitive team, and that's still a team. And with the way Philly's playing right now against Arizona, that's not going to help their case at all. The Mets got 1 out of 3 in San Francisco after getting swept at home by the Dodgers. So they're 5-6 on the bottom end, and they've got a 4-game series against those Dodgers again, too. The National League East, Charlie, Atlanta 3 up on Philadelphia, starting to play well, 6 in a row. And Philadelphia, don't know what's going on with them in Arizona. And I wouldn't surprise me if Bumgarner shut them down, but they do have their ace, Zach Wheeler, going up. And then the Mets have 4 games in Los Angeles this weekend. Dodgers undecided on who they're going to pitch tonight, probably over the weekend as well, too, with Scherzer, Urias, and Buehler able to go the other 3 games this weekend, Charlie.
Well, I know a couple of guys that kept telling everybody, don't sleep on Atlanta. In fact, I think I'm looking at them right now. And they're coming through.
By the way, not to interrupt, I'm sorry to interrupt. By the way, they're doing this without Ronald Acuna Jr. too.
That's right. We kept saying, hey, we know he's down, but this team is a fighter. They kept adding, they kept, just trying to add pieces here and there and keep things going. That team, they're fighters, and they have taken advantage of their ballpark. They've done all the things that they're supposed to do, and now 6 in a row. This team knows how to win, and they're doing it. And Philly right now is being Philly. This team is, they frustrate me. They should not be doing this, and yet they are. And Philly fans, oh Lord, they're all at the pharmacies trying to get meds right now. I mean, between the Phillies, the Eagles, and the 76ers, the poor Philly fans, they're a mess. Philly should be doing better now. It was interesting. I saw Jessica Mendoza on earlier today on ESPN, and she says, now don't give up on Philly. She said they're still gonna be in this thing coming down the line. Well, I hope she's right, because I'd like to see a good battle in the East coming down the stretch. But I just have a tough time believing in Philly, because they do these things. They do these silly things. They should not be losing to Arizona. Now, today's game, I would see as competitive, because Bumgarner has been pitching well. So I would see today's game as being competitive, even if they were going well. But they should not be losing games to Arizona. And if you're losing games to Arizona, you got to go look in the mirror and say, what's the matter with us?
I give them credit. I give Arizona credit. They're playing better in the last 10 games. They're 5-5. They've won 2 in a row. They beat Philadelphia. Humberto Castellanos started yesterday. He went 2 for 2 and drove in both runs for the Arizona Diamondbacks to start the game, and they ended up winning that game. But Philadelphia is a total question mark to me. They have the talent. Their bullpen's not very good. Zach Wheeler's had a really good year. They did lose 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati last weekend. This could be their stretch, that they're going a rough stretch right now. But they better stick with it, because they're 3 back of Atlanta, and Atlanta's hot right now. The Mets cannot figure out the Mets. Mets are not very good. I just don't think offensively. And of course, their owner, if you saw it, Steve Cohen, the owner, he ripped his major league club, saying these aren't major league hitters. They're very unproductive. He's right, and he owns the team. He can say what he wants. I'm sure it doesn't resonate very well, but maybe he did it to fire the team up. We'll see, because they're going into LA, who is red hot right now. We'll get to the National League West in a second, but the New York Mets and their owner, Steve Cohen, he bought this team for all this money, signed Francisco Lindor. And I think, frankly, he has a right to say what he wants. I didn't make it personal, but he's just saying what everybody else is saying in New York, Charlie.
Hey, listen, you know what? Somebody said, oh, he's a Steinbrenner. Okay. You know, who won more pennants than George Steinbrenner? I mean, you know, what's he paying out? 225, $230 million this year
Yeah,
in
but the
payroll?
rest, but the bottom line is Steve Cohen didn't talk at all this whole year. George Steinbrenner, he would have been talking 7 days in a
Oh, yeah.
row. That's the
No,
whole
no, but,
difference.
you know, hey, you're absolutely right. He owns the team. He's got the right to say, "Hey, fellas," you know, I mean, "Hey, your guys at Fox, if you were screwing up with your production work,
Yeah,
would somebody take you aside and say, 'Hey, you're screwing up?'"
probably
Now,
not. I'm too good. No, I'm kidding. We all make mistakes. I get it. We all make mistakes.
Jack Buck,
Yeah.
I need to talk to you. But
David Hill on line one.
yeah, but you know, seriously, it's okay. And I think you're absolutely right. I think he's just trying to fire him up.
Yeah.
I think you're trying to say, we'll show that stinking owner. Okay, well, if it works,
If it works,
you know,
great.
go for it. You know, but I didn't have a problem with it. You know, he didn't really get nasty, but oh, did he hurt their feelings? Oh, you know,
Maybe. But you know what? They won yesterday after he came out with it. They got an
exactly.
extra inning win in San Francisco. Not an easy place to win. Kevin Pillar with the big home run. They've got the Dodgers. They're in LA. It's going to be tough. But they you know, if they can get one game in LA, I think they'll feel pretty good because the Dodgers
You
are
know,
red
put
hot
your
right
big
now.
boy pants on and go play ball.
Go play ball. That's it. Go play ball and go be yourselves. You got good pitching. Your bullpen's a little shaky. Your offense is coming around a little bit right now. You didn't make the trades you wanted for the offensive players. Lindor's been hurt. Baez is now on the 10-day IL. So you've got 6 weeks to right the ship now. The NL East is still up for grabs. You're only 4 games back. It's not that big of a gap to come in there. And as we get to the wild cards here in a little bit, we'll get to the wild card. The Milwaukee Brewers have taken 2 from St. Louis. I thought St. Louis had that game yesterday. Jack Flaherty looked great for 6 innings, but they just cannot stop the bullpen from imploding. And they imploded again yesterday against the Cardinals. An extra inning loss, 6-4 by Milwaukee. They're good. Nobody's talking about them, Charlie. Everybody talks about Gabe Kapler. Of course, I live on the West Coast. They're talking about Gabe Kapler up and down, but I also remember the same group of people that were complaining about Gabe Kapler 2 years ago in terms of managing.
What, his head last year?
That's right.
I believe they wanted to take him out and behead him, if I remember.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Because he was over managing. And like I said, check out the conversation I had with Bill Lasky on Monday because he noted the differences between their coaching staffs last year and coaching this year. And obviously it's paid off. But Milwaukee is 74-47. Getting back to the Central, they are 10 up in the loss column on Cincinnati, who lost 2 out of 3 to the Cubs. Surprisingly, Cincinnati was about a $3 favorite yesterday with Tyler Mahle. And sure enough, the Cubs go and beat them 7-1. And they take 2 out of 3 from the series. St. Louis is 12 back, 11 back in the loss column. That NL Central is wrapped up, Charlie. But what's your take on Milwaukee for the 6 weeks?
Wow. You know, again, my only concern about them is being too far out in front and coasting, and then not having the edge going into the playoffs. But man, they're good. They are really good and managed so well. You know, I know people are, well, you know, what's the manager?
Who's Craig Counsell? That's what everybody's saying. Who's Craig Counsell?
You know, and I'm telling you, you haven't been paying attention. If you don't know who he is and what difference he makes on the bench, you haven't been paying attention, or you just don't know baseball. Because this guy has been steady. He's been there. He's a big part of who this team is and what their success is. And you know, they're a factor. And you know, a championship series between the Brewers and the Giants, or the Brewers and the Dodgers, could be. And yes, I went there, folks. That could be dynamic. I mean, that could be really, really exciting. And I think that's where we're headed.
No doubt. Craig Counsell, the Milwaukee Brewers' second best record in the National League. They're tied with Tampa for second best record overall. They have the Miami Marlins. The Reds have the Marlins this weekend. Where's Milwaukee? I just saw it coming up this weekend after the St. Louis series. They've got the Washington Nationals coming in for 3 this weekend in Washington. Yeah, this will be a weekend where they should be able to feast a little bit on Nationals pitching. The only time they play the Nationals at home as well. So props to Craig Counsell. Their pitching is unbelievable. We know how good their pitching is. They added a couple of bats Their offense seems to be clicking a little bit. Escobar has had a good run. He's hitting over 300 since he joined the Brewers. But Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta, all with OPSs around 500, which is very good. Josh Hader looked good in the bullpen yesterday. He's come off the injured list or the COVID list, whatever you want to call it. And then, of course, before Hader, they've got Devin Williams with that nasty changeup. He saved the game yesterday. They brought Hader in the 10th, and he did his job. And Devin Williams shut the door down in the 12th. So they've got two closers right now. And right now, they remind me of the White Sox with that pitching and the bullpen with the two closers right now. All right, moving on to the National League West. A lot to talk about in the National League West, Charlie. We got about 10 minutes in the show, so we'll hit the National League West. Giants on a roll right now. They did lose yesterday to the Mets. They took 3 out of 4 from Colorado, so they're 5 out of 7 in their last 7 games. They have a 3-game lead. This is the first time the Dodgers in a week have picked up a game. The Dodgers are 9-1 in their last 10. They beat the Pirates 9-0 yesterday. They start the series with the Mets, as we said. Giants have a day off. They will go to Oakland this weekend after going 8-2 in their last 10. So the 1-game difference. It's 3 back in the National League West. San Diego, too far gone for the West, so don't even worry about them anymore. 13 back in the loss column of the Padres, who got swept by Colorado, who, by the way, Colorado, we said this last week, Colorado, the 4th best home team in Major League Baseball. They got their 41st win at home yesterday. The problem with Colorado is they've only got 14 wins on the road. So that's the big problem.
There's no home field advantage in Denver, is there?
No, not at all. 41 wins, 3rd best record in Major League Baseball for home victories. Charlie, Giants, Dodgers. Dodgers have the Mets this weekend. The Giants have the Oakland A's this weekend. Should be a good series. What do we see as far as the not stepping? Bill Lasky made the point the other day. You can't take days off just because you're playing a bad team. And they kind of do a little bit every once in a while. And I don't know if it's fatigue or not, but there are no days off except for the scheduled ones you have, according to Lasky, which I believe as well, too. 3 games going into this weekend, and it all culminates on Labor Day weekend when they come into San Francisco. The Dodgers come into San Francisco for that weekend. But let's focus on this weekend right now for the Giants and A's and the Dodgers and Mets.
Well, the Mets, I feel bad for because they're going to LA and the Dodgers smell blood because the Dodgers are playing well and they have gained a game and they haven't been able to gain. What'd you say? It's been what? How long has it been since they've been able to gain a game?
About a week and a half, because every time they win, they both lost on Saturday, and yesterday was the first time in about 10 days that in 10 games that they got a win and the Giants got a loss, so they picked up a game.
So now they're looking and going, man, if all they need to do to have a successful weekend is gain one more game, because you don't have to gain the whole Megillah in one weekend. But if they can come out of this weekend and gain one more game, the Giants all of a sudden are feeling a lot of heat on the back of the neck. And against the Mets right now, the way the Mets are playing, there is no reason why they can't do that. All they got to do is take 2 out of 3. That's all they got to do. And they can do that very easily. We've talked about the Dodgers. The Dodgers are loaded. They're very talented. And we also know that the Giants have been overproducing. I mean, I'm in Northern California. I have a lot of friends who are Giants fans. My grandson is a diehard Giants fan. But Giants fans, let's be honest, they've been overproducing all season long. And we know that. The Dodgers loaded. The Dodgers have been underproducing. And at some point, the Dodgers are going to turn loose. And right now, folks, if you're a Giants fan, you need to be worried because the Dodgers are starting to play up to their potential. And I'm telling you, all they got to do is gain one game this weekend. Now, Giants, Oakland, always a knockdown, drag out weekend. But the weekend more important to the Giants than it is to Oakland at this point, I think. Oakland wants to do well. They are in the wild card race, and they know that. They don't want to let Houston get farther away from them. But right now, Oakland is playing his offense is so horrible, And I don't think necessarily that the Giants are the team that they're going to get healthy against. So I think that the Giants have the potential to win this series, and they need to win this series to keep the Dodgers at bay. If they don't win this series, they have serious problems with the Dodgers coming up right at them from behind.
Tom on Facebook reaching out to us. Thanks, Tom. Giants need to play playoff baseball against the A's. Two things going against the Giants this weekend. They've had tough times in Oakland with the A's, even when they were good and the A's were bad, especially during the Bonds years. And the A's are coming off a really bad road streak, and they play well at home. So this is a chance for them to kind of get back into the race. Houston will have, in fact, I'll look at it right now. Houston has Kansas City today. Houston will have the Seattle Mariners, and what's going to be a good matchup for them as well, too. The Mariners are trying to make some hay in that American League West as well. All right, last couple of minutes here. The wild card, the Dodgers have clinched. They're 100. Dodgers and Giants are 100%, according to some service I saw, to be in the playoffs. The Dodgers are 10 up on San Diego in the wild card spot. They lead that. They will not blow a 10-game lead. I don't care what anybody says. San Diego, the one struggling. We talked about their Colorado struggles, their struggles on the road. They're only up a game on Cincinnati, who really had a chance to be in second place this week with Colorado hosting San Diego. Cincinnati let the Cubs come in and beat them twice. St. Louis only 2 back, even though they've lost 2 to Milwaukee. Philadelphia 3 back in the wild card, and the Mets are 4 back in the National League wild card race. Charlie, a weekend of wild card baseball. It's going to be interesting as we get close to our pick segment here. But give me your thumbnail sketch here on the wild card going into the weekend. Dodgers have New York. San Diego has Philadelphia. And Cincinnati will have Miami. St. Louis will have who do they have? St. Louis will have I don't know who they have. It's not on the board. I don't see them anywhere. I'll figure it out anyway. And then the Mets will have, and then Philadelphia and the Mets, we already said, have San Diego and Los Angeles. Go ahead, Charlie, with the wild card real quick.
Well, the wild card situation right now is still crazy. The way San Diego's playing, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them fall out of it. They just don't seem serious to me at this point. And the way they're injured, and Arrieta comes out, everybody says, thought he was going to be the savior of the universe. And then he goes down injured. I don't know if they come out and said how bad the injury is yet.
To who?
To Arrieta.
Oh, Arrieta's been getting lit up. I'm not even sure. I don't even know why they signed him to begin with. By the way, that over-under was Colorado. Colorado over-under on San Diego was 14. It didn't get to 14 yesterday, but that's based on the Arrieta factor. So who knows how serious it is. Cole Hamels failed his physical with the Dodgers, but he's guaranteed the $1 million, so he's going to be sitting at home cashing $1 million for the Dodgers right now. It's going to be interesting, Charlie.
I can feel my physical. My knees, man, I can feel my physical. But Cincinnati, I don't know. You know my feeling. I'm a Reds fan. I at this point I'm morose every time this time of the year. So I don't know. St. Louis, they should be doing better.
Their bullpen's horrible. Their bullpen's horrible. St. Louis has a problem. St. Louis has Pittsburgh this weekend, so maybe they can make some hay as well, too. All right, Charlie, 1.5 minutes left. Let's get to our picks here on the Make Money and Run Thursday podcast. Go ahead.
Listen, I like Houston minus 170 versus the Royals. I'm going to go an over-under total in that Minnesota Yankees game. I'm going to go under 10.5 just because Minnesota is so horrible with the bats. And I'm going to try a little preseason football tonight because it's game number 2. I'm going to take the Pats -1 against the awful, the horrible, disappointing Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. We'll see how that goes with Charlie on the preseason football. Me, no football yet for me. Detroit, going to start in about 15 minutes against the Angels. Matt Manning has pitched well, plus 102 at home. Tampa Bay, Baltimore also going to go off in about 15 minutes, over 9 on the board. Seattle Mariners 130 at Texas. The White Sox 155 against the A's, so keep the A's struggling. Cincinnati, Miami, LA, New York not on the board. Check us out at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific on social media. 10 games in major leagues today, 8 on the board. Check it out, and we'll get there. All right, we want to thank Britannia Arms, www.britanniaarms.com, britanniaarmsdienza.com 408-257-7262 for sponsoring us. Silicon Valley's oldest British pub and restaurant. That's going to do it for Thursday. We'll see you at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock tomorrow on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Take care, everybody.
Bill Freehand.